Well, hello and welcome everyone to Talk Leadership with Cedrick. You know, everybody needs a little TLC, and I am Cedrick LaFleur, your host tonight. And, you know, Talk Leadership with Cedrick is where we focus on leadership and personal growth with business leaders, educators, and local thought leaders. Our goal is to introduce our audience to leaders who are making an impact with innovative ideas. And we have a great leader with us tonight, folks. So I'm excited. You know, our guiding leadership principle is the law of contribution, which says growing yourself enables you to grow others. So you can't give what you don't have. So first you must grow yourself in order to grow others. We believe that outstanding leaders like yourself will help us to help others. So tonight, folks, sit back, relax. We have a dynamic leader with us. Now, you know, every week I like to do a proper introduction of our guest. So let me do a proper introduction of our guest tonight. And her name is Ms. Jannine Conway. Now, Jannine graduated from the Air Force Academy. Off we go into the wild blue yonder, folks. Graduated from the Air Force Academy and was the first African-American to serve as a physicist in the United States Air Force, where she recently retired at the rank of lieutenant colonel after 23 years. And that's a long time, folks. And I'm excited for Jannine's next journeys in life, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So how did an Air Force physicist become a financial planner? That's the big question. She's known as JJ, and she returned from a 6-month military trip to discover her house sold, divorce papers, and over $845,000 in debt to her name. Now I'm going to say that again, folks. $845,000 debt assigned to her name. Adapting to a life as a military single mom, JJ learned how money worked and how to make it work for her quickly, yet ethically. I like that, right? She now teaches others the same personal growth and financial management skills that allow her to dump that debt and begin building wealth. She also mirrors these principles when working with businesses to improve processes, people, and profit, the 3 Ps. So let's welcome Ms. Jannine JJ Conway to the show.
Hey, Cedrick. Thank you so much for having me on the line. You are right. Everybody needs a little TLC, a little leadership talk, a talk leadership with Cedrick.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to have you here with us tonight, JJ. So, you know, I read a little bit about your bio, but our listeners really like to hear your journey directly from you. So how did you get to where you are today?
Well, as you mentioned in the bio, I started out in the Air Force as an Air Force officer. And my very first realization that leadership was not just being good at your primary job was when I was in charge of Air Force Oil Analysis, a program where I set direction for over 120 non-destructive analysis labs. And I thought I was big timing, right? Like I thought I had arrived. But the thing is, I didn't supervise any of the 450 people that were supposed to be working for me. I didn't even supervise my deputy or my superintendent. And I found out real quick, I had to learn peer leadership. And that's when I realized that leadership is influence. Even though I didn't have those words to describe it at the time, I realized I needed to learn something. It wasn't just about being a good scientist or engineer.
Wow. Well, that is awesome. So one of the things before we tap into talking about finances, you are one of a few Black physicists. And in fact, you're one of a few physicists that I know, right? So what made you decide career physicist?
Well, I hope this answer doesn't offend your audience or make them too uncomfortable. My goal is always to inform, not to offend. But I've tried to find other ways to talk about my story, but it's really difficult to do that with authenticity. And I was actually better in other subjects like math or chemistry, but I thought they were kind of boring, and I was always interested in space. So I approached the physics department, which even though my grades met the requirement. I mean, they weren't stellar in physics, but they met the requirement. They told me I couldn't do it. They told me that blacks can't do physics, and they were convinced that I was not going to be able to do it. And that's when I made up my mind. I'm going to show them they are wrong, and that you cannot tell me what I'm not going to do. And so, it's interesting that it's an interesting illustration that sometimes we can spend a whole lifetime trying to prove ourselves to people. And in my case, it worked out well for me because I do love science. I love STEM. But I think about so many of my clients who've done the same thing. They've spent a lifetime trying to prove themselves to their mom or their dad or somebody because somebody said something way back when. And I just hope that we'll all challenge some of those beliefs so that we can live a life we truly love.
Wow. Well, that is awesome. So tell us a little bit about your business. Now, I know you have a for-profit business and a non-for-profit business. So our audience want to know all about all of them. So tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, I guess the problem with me is I'm just so multi-attentive that I just want to do everything, but I am learning to cull some of those things down. And I do minister, and I do run it's Abundance Church of the Living God International. For a few years it was Kingstown. You might have seen that. If you search for me, you'll find it under Kingstown, but we just changed our name. We do health, wealth, and spiritual growth, and really bringing people to the Lord. And I personally, unlike a lot of other preachers, I don't sing. I'm not the welcoming, warm greeter person at Walmart that stands in line and talks your ear off and invites you to church. Those aren't my talents. I thank the Lord for sending people who have those talents to help me. But my talents are in financial and in education. And so one of my primary outreaches is through community classes to help people with their money, with their life, with their finance, their relationships, and all those kinds of things. And so on the for-profit side, I run an international financial empowerment company, education company, and it, like you said in the intro, I help people dump debt, build wealth, leave a legacy. And then one of the ways I help people increase their wealth is by working with them in their businesses to improve people, processes, and profit. And we do that, both of those lanes, believe it or not. It's very little financial education. It's actually more communication and leadership, self-leadership on the personal finance side, business leadership on the business finance side.
Awesome. So you'll see folks scrolling across the screen, and in the chat, you'll see her website, buildingwealthtogether.com. And then you'll also see her nonprofit page, jjconway.org, scrolling across the screen as well. And in the comments. So reach out to them and see how they can help you. And she serves people all over the world. So you heard her say it earlier, she likes to spread her wings and do a lot of different things. So let's reach out to them. And so, folks, for this whole month, Money March Madness, we've been talking to people who are in the finance space. And JJ, we're going to spend some time now talking about financial literacy and financial health. Now, you've overcome a big financial pitfall. $845,000. I know that when that number hit you at first, you're probably like, oh boy, I need a big shovel, right? Tell our audience about that and how did you overcome that?
Well, I will say, before I tell you how I got into all of that one of the ways that I overcame it was I didn't realize how much debt it was at first. So I think if I had realized how big the number was at first, then I think I may have been too overwhelmed to move forward. But like I think you mentioned earlier, I came home from a 6-month military trip, and my house was sold, my stuff was thrown out, and my ex, he had decided to move on in his life. And by the time the divorce dust settled, I was a single military mom with all of that debt. And, I can talk about some of the specific steps I took, like how I actually tangibly, tactically earned that money. But I would like to summarize first by saying I found ways to spend less, which is why people call me the queen of cash flow, because I will find ways for you to free up cash flow in your budget. And then I found a whole lot of ways to earn more. And as I got more experience in earning more, I let go of the ones that didn't earn as much per effort that I had to put in. And I focused on the things like real estate investing and helping other people with their money that actually brought me a lot of profit.
Awesome. Excuse me. So why do you think financial literacy is so important?
I think financial literacy is super important because one of the reasons people don't build wealth is because they think money is super complicated and they feel like that's something they're never going to be able to understand. And they feel like it's for those rich people to understand. And then they might also feel like they can't, like it's just not for them. And none of those things are true. I mean, sure, there are some esoteric financial products out there that are really complicated, but you don't need that to build wealth. In fact, I tell my clients when you're looking to invest in something, it's got to pass two tests. It's got to pass the grandma test. Can you explain it to your grandma? And then it's got to pass the New York Post test. Would you be okay with it being on the front page of the Washington Post or the New York Times, right? So for me, I don't actually recommend that people get into complicated financial strategies until they have the financial independence to either buy the assistance to understand what they're doing, or they have the time to become experts themselves. And most of us don't need to do that. One thing that financial literacy does for us is it opens up options. And when we learn how money works, we understand that there are a lot of things that us normal folks think are normal, are part of life, that are actually penalties. And once you realize how other people are making money off of you, it kind of lights a fire under you to make your money work for yourself. I also found that what a lot of the financial gurus say on TV or their radio shows is not actually how they run their financial lives. And a lot of them I have found they will tell you all these things that make people want to buy their classes. But at the end of the day, they do what I did. They spend less than they make. They invested the rest in the stock market or in real estate. I mean, a lot of financial planner types are very, very simple in that. And it's important for us to know as consumers that we can be in charge of our money. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be boring. It may be unpleasant sometimes, like when you overshop. And I love to shop. People think I'm so tight with money. I was really good with money when I didn't have any. And one of the very first challenges that I had to overcome when I got out of debt was the tendency to just, I'm going to spend because I have the money and I've been living on nothing for so long. Right.
Right.
So that's financial literacy helps give you some guardrails so that when you do go have fun, you can have fun unfettered and you don't have to come home and worry about how you're going to pay the bills because you already know.
Yes, absolutely. So it's sort of like a GPS guidance system, right? That financial plan is going to help give you some guidance on where your money can go and what you should do with this. That GPS is going to get you to where you need to be if you follow it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely love that. And one of the things you said also, JJ, was that the financial gurus will say one thing to the audience and then do something else. And let me say, folks, I 100% agree with her. Now, you guys know that I'm a Dave Ramsey, my master financial coach, and I follow Dave Ramsey principles. However, and I will say that, normally the process is get out of debt first and then start investing. Well, when you're speaking to the masses, that is a great message. Right. But when you're individuals, you got to think realistically. If I'm 50 years old and I haven't invested anything, I can't just keep trying to get out of debt and never start investing. So then this is where that budget that JJ is talking about comes in hand, that guidance system you have. I'm going to work on getting out of debt, but then I'm going to take a little bit and start putting it away.
Can I expand on that just a little bit, Cedrick? Because that's one of the biggest challenges that I have with people in their 50s or 60s who don't want to dump their debt because they feel like I'm too far along. I need to start investing. I need to do this. And I actually teach how to buy real estate without taking on more debt. I mean, you might be taking over somebody else's debt, but there are ways to invest and pay down the debt, that you can absolutely start in your 50s and 60s and be financial free in your 60s and 70s, you know.
Yeah.
And so I when I look at a lot of folks, and I'm also a Ramsey preferred coach, and I've loved implementing it, because the same guy that got me out of debt the first time, which I should have listened to him and cut up all the cards, Larry Burkett, is the same guy that helped Dave Ramsey get out of debt. And when I look at these financial strategies, I feel like when people don't have hope, when they feel like it's too late, and they feel like they're washed up, and there's nothing else I can do, and oh my goodness, I've stepped in it. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you don't ever have to give up. You can always turn it around. Yeah. It took me 10, 11 years to pay off all that debt. But that part of that was because I wouldn't take ownership of a lot of it. I paid off the 120 that was on my credit cards that I should have cut up when I first got out of debt. and that my ex turned around and found, hey, look, here's some cards laying around that I can have fun with. I paid off that immediately. But then I said, oh, well, that's his debt. My name's on it, but it's his debt. It's in the divorce decree that I got to pay it off, but it's really his debt, you know. And I made excuses for a long time. It didn't have to take all that long. And if people will be intentional, it's amazing. And you know this because I've seen your desire and your passion for what you do. I've seen how it's multiplied in your life and in your business, and even this new youth ministry. And so you know what I'm about to say, that when we desire something with all of our heart, and we set our intention, and we persevere, and we're persistent about it, it comes to pass, and it comes to pass very quickly. And so I get some clients, they're like, oh, I can't pay off all this debt. I need to save up and buy a house. I want to buy a house. You know what? Let's free up some cash flow. I'll show you how to buy a house without having to take on a loan. I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you how to make this work. But you got to do step A, B, and C first, because I need you to free up your cash flow and free up your income and free up your energy.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely love it. Folks, let me tell you what, if you'll see her information scrolling across the screen, and Facebook, LinkedIn will show her for-profit website, her non-for-profit website as well, and it'll be in the comments. But you have to make sure, folks, so you got to surround yourself with people who are doing things and going places where you want to be and go. I know you guys follow me, but it's important that you hear another voice as well, that you hear someone else who is doing it in a different way and in a major way. This is why I bring people on the show, folks. So make sure you sign up. And let's say you have all the people that you're following are people who are helping you from a financial standpoint. All the people you're following are helping you from a leadership perspective. That's not going to be a bad thing, folks. You're going to change your life. So what makes you smile when you get up in the morning?
Well, these days I am a full-time entrepreneur by day, but a full-time mom at night. And I love in the mornings, my boys. My little one gets a snuggle while his dad makes him some cereal. And my teenager actually tells me a lot of what's going on as we're getting ready in the morning. And so I'm sure most of your audience is going to be surprised to hear this, but we actually live in a little 1-bedroom house out in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And we made the decision to stay in my husband's home until my son graduates, because he's doing well. And we know we want to move to the big city after that. And we just have too much stuff to keep moving and moving. So I was really dreading sharing the bathroom with 3 guys, but those morning bathroom conversations are priceless. If I'd have known that, I may have done it a little sooner. Maybe not.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. That's a great reason to make you smile in the morning. So you may not remember this, but I remember when we first met at an international conference, and I thought, after talking with you for a little bit, so we were sitting, let me set the stage here. I was sitting at the table, and then you came up and said, hey, and then you sat down there, and we were sitting talking, and we were, I forgot the course that we were going through, but we were doing this activity where we had to ask each other questions, and we had to reply back a certain way. And then in between this, we were having just dialogue about what we were doing in life and all this type of stuff. And that's why I learned you were in the Air Force. And when I left that conversation, I went, man, that girl, that's smart. She's pretty sharp, right? So being sharp, being a physicist, first of all, that's just impressive. But what keeps you humble and keeps you relatable?
Those are not two words that people usually use to describe me. So that must be evidence that the Lord is working in my life, y'all, because that is something I have been asking the Lord. Please help me season my words with grace. And I just, I will say that I do actually intentionally try to stay humble, because anyone who's ever worked with a physicist or any kind of top engineer or mathematician, they tend to think that they're all that and they're smarter than everybody else. But for me, I know that I wouldn't be where I am today unless a lot of people poured into me. And there's so many people that helped me through that time when I was $800 and something thousand in debt. And there's people who poured into my business and they didn't have to. And I'm so thankful for the people that God put in my path, the people that opened up doors for me, or the ones that pulled me aside and taught me what I was missing. And they didn't even have to do that. They saw something, and I'm just so thankful that they did. The other thing that keeps me humble, and I've only recently become more vocal about it, is that I have a type of a sensory processing disorder. And so if there's more than two or so streams of audio going on, I actually don't hear what's going on. And so, for a lot of my life, I didn't really show up well because I looked like I didn't know what was going on, because I didn't know what was going on. And until I learned how to manage that. And I think when you spend a significant amount of your time in your career trying to manage a learning disability so that you don't always appear like you have one, it gives you a sense of humility, and you don't have to compete with everybody else to get where you want to go. You're just happy that you did it. I'm happy that I've accomplished what I've accomplished. And I know there's more for me, and there's more for all of us. And I like to surround myself with people who are going somewhere. So I'm not going to be competitive or vain or jealous about those kinds of things.
Yeah. Oh, well, that is awesome. So you just said something that one, I didn't know until just right now, but you said something that I believe that we got to tap into, because it's going to help a whole lot of people. You see, you said that you had a certain disability, right? Now, put that right there, and you're a physicist. You see what I'm saying? Some people with a disability would say, "There's no way I can be a physicist." Now, you may not have learned that you had this disability until later. I don't know. But the point is, some person will label their kid that they have a disability, so they can't do these great things. Right. Now, not only you're a physicist, but you spent 23 years as an officer in the United States Air Force and rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel. And folks, let me tell you what, now it's nothing against the Army and the Marines and all of that, but the Air Force is, that's why I was in the Air Force. The Air Force is here, folks, and you don't rise to the ranks. One, you don't spend 23 years in if you're not capable. And then two, you don't rise to the ranks of lieutenant colonel if you're not more than capable. You see? So I speak to that if you can, this having a disability and then still exceeding expectations in all kind of ways.
Well, that's some of that is the drive to prove yourself, or the desire to have, or the, for a lot of my life, I knew when I was in elementary school that the teachers had labeled me slow, and my mom had made sure, I think around about second grade, when it was clear I wasn't getting any better, that school wasn't helping me, that she made sure to get me a particular second grade teacher, Mrs. Gilmore, who absolutely helped change my life because she worked with me to actually understand. I could play back anything that you told me. I could read with inflection too. Even at a young age, I've always been a very good narrator or voice script actor. And, but she actually taught me how to understand and how to slow down a little bit and actually understand what the words were saying, not just play back the words. And so that was very instrumental for me, but it really wasn't until I was well into my career. And what happened that opened up my eyes and helped and caused me to seek care and understanding for different things is that my son, my oldest, when he was younger, he exhibited a lot of autistic tendencies, and he would have the different things that you would see with other autistic children. He didn't talk for a very long time. He was very everything lined up, and he had some other things. And I don't want to take this whole term to talk about that, but a parent kind of knows after a while that something's not quite right. And so I went through the process of getting him diagnosed, which if you don't have money and you don't have healthcare that cares about you, it's a very long, arduous process to get your child diagnosed with learning disabilities and things like that. And turned out he didn't meet the criteria. He failed one of the primary criteria for autism, which was imagination. He had an extensive imagination. So he failed. He met many of the criteria, but not enough to be diagnosed. And so, but in that journey, I began to research, okay, well, what can his life be like if he really is autistic, if he's high functioning autistic? And I met lawyers and professors and doctors and scientists and all of these people who were doing amazing things, who were on the spectrum. And through them, I met other people that had a name to the things that I had experienced all my life. And that's when I began to work with the doctors like, hey, this, and so with the audiogram, the audiologist and all that kind of stuff that you do. But that was a kind of circuitous path. Like I was trying to help my son, and this is halfway through my military career. And I was like, oh, you mean everybody doesn't have that problem? And then I was able to learn some strategies to make it not be so apparent. And I mean, some things are apparent, but there's things that you can do in a lot of situations. If you really have a burning desire and a goal, you will find a way to make it work. Yes. And
Awesome. I absolutely love that. So, building wealth is a long-term gain, right? You see a whole lot of people with microwave type mentality, but building wealth is about setting that oven at 350 and knowing that it's just going to take a while for that cake to get done or for that chicken to be done. And same thing with building wealth, right? It's not an overnight thing. So how do you help customers, your clients, understand that point versus people thinking that they can have this get rich quick scheme to building wealth?
This is absolutely the biggest struggle that I have as both a financial planner and a financial coach, because our cultural attention span is decreasing rapidly. I think you and I were in the same conference where they explained to us that our attention is less than the span of a goldfish, and so it's very difficult today to get people who don't already think long-term strategically to start thinking long-term strategically. But one of the most telling principles of financial success is the ability to think strategically, think long-term, and delay gratification, because you are looking at where you want to be. And so that's one of the first things I do. Where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years from now? And I have them focus on that with every time they schedule an appointment on my calendar, they have to put in what is their 5-year goal, because what it does is it expands their awareness of other options. Now, I don't know about everybody who's watching this. I imagine your audience is more elevated than I was growing up. When I was growing up, you got paid, you spent all your paycheck, and then for the next 2 weeks, you were just broke. And then you got paid again, and you spent your paycheck, and hope
it
your
never
rent
happens
was.
to my audience.
Well, the thing is, the reason I say that is because when I went to my the coursework for Certified Financial Planner, Mark, and then when I went to the Dave Ramsey coaching, I ran into so many people who never struggled with money. And I'm like, really? And they made me feel so small. And then I was like, wait a second. No. $845,000 of debt. And I think by then, I was down to maybe 2 properties left that were upside down. Like one of those debts was a property that had been 400,000, but when the market crashed, it was only worth 180. So like I had a lot of that kind of debt.
Okay.
And I felt so small at first, and I had to pick myself up and say, no, I'm doing a good thing. And I'm going to be able to help way more people than these guys who think they ain't ever done nothing wrong.
Exactly.
but when we expand our awareness, it shows us other options. And so for me, sometimes it's no kidding. Okay, instead of getting all the shoe releases, let's just skip one. I understand your kid's shoe game has to be tight. I get that because my kid's shoe game has to be tight. I get it. But let's skip a release. He'll be okay. All right. And it sounds silly, but I have met so many people who aren't thinking strategically. Let me tell you about another one. And we do this as parents, and we don't even realize what we're doing until a third-party coach reveals it to us. But I had somebody that a friend wanted their friends to become one of my client. And so we're all at dinner, and I'm meeting this potential client couple, and they're investing $700 a month for their son, who was the same age as mine. So at the time, I think they were like 10, 11. $700 a month for this child to train with a retired NBA player, so that they could make sure that he got to college on a full ride and then went on to play NBA.
Oh, wow.
And I love sports. Okay. I love, I go down every time they have that Pelicans career fair. I'm down there. I enjoy a good basketball game, right? I will be on that floor, cheering Zion on, but, $700 a month at 11 years old, if they had invested that in a 529 plan, they'd only have to, especially with the systems in Virginia at that time. That's where I was living in Virginia. You don't need $200 million to go to college. They have very good system there. And so I was like, if you could just invest that for 2 years, he can go to college and do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to play basketball. He doesn't have to do these things. And we all know as grown folk that your likelihood of making it to the pros is so tiny. And I couldn't expand their awareness on it. They were convinced this was the right path. And I thought to myself, how many pro players do I know, both basketball and football, and now baseball? How many retired players do I know who are like, I thought I was on my way. I got injured in college. I thought I was on my way. I got injured senior year of high school. I thought I was on my way. I signed that contract for the NFL. And then during practice, boom. And so for me, one of the biggest things that I do try to do is get folks to look strategically, and so that maybe they will be able to get those options. And then the other thing is being willing to let go of something today that's of lower value, so that our hands are free to reach for something of higher value.
Oh, man. I love it. Absolutely. Absolutely love it. Folks, this part of the interview, if you just highlight this and hold on to it and listen to it over and over and over again, folks, I guarantee you it's going to be worth the price of admission to anything that you go to, right? You really need to take in and reflect on what JJ just said, because it can change. It can make a difference in your life and in the life of your children every day, all day, and twice on Sunday. So, quick question. Do you have to make a lot of money to have financial stability?
Actually, you know what? My most successful in becoming financially independent clients fall into 2 categories. One is women in their 60s whose their husband just died, or they just became divorced and they need to learn how to run money for the first time. That's a very highly motivated, successful group. But my second most successful category are actually people who make $50,000 a year or less, because I don't, people think, oh, well, you have to invest all this and you have to have money to make money and all those kinds of things. And actually, to me, I work in percentages. So if you make $50,000 a year, then I'm going to recommend that you invest 7,500. That's 15%. Yeah, 7,500. And if you make 500,000, well, then it's going to be 75,000 a year. I'm going to recommend that you do those things because those numbers have been shown that if you invest that, 15, 20 years, 20, 25 years, 15, 20 years, depending on your other factors, that you will be able to maintain your lifestyle. And so whatever you make, it's about the percentages and it's about the discipline and the dedication. And what I find is my lower income clients are more likely to stick with that. And because, if you think about it, 7,500 a month, what is that? 625 a month, right? They're already paying that in debt. And so Queen of Cash Flow comes in, shows you how to free up cash flow, show you how to pay down your debt. And now you've got $600, $700, $800 a month that you didn't used to have anymore. And I'm telling you, take a chunk of that and put it in the market. You haven't lost anything. Right. My higher wage earners, or those who, I've had people who are worth several million. They're worried about their image. They're worried about their lifestyle. And even though I show them that, with numbers and figures, how far you can get ahead by implementing the same policy, I'd say maybe 10% of my high earners stick with it, as opposed to about 75% of my low income earners. And at the end of the day, it's all about being financially independent. It's about being in charge of your life, telling your money where to go, and then having the flexibility and freedom to earn money or not earn money as you see fit. Because we're not thinking, I wasn't thinking in my 30s, I wasn't thinking about being hurt as I got older and being retired and having medical issues that would keep me from working. I mean, I was invincible. I mean, come on, right? And so, and then I also didn't think about back then the ability. Like, I never would have thought, if you would say, I'm going to hit my 50th birthday being a stay-at-home mom, I would not have believed you. I'd have been like, whatever, I've got other stuff to do. But my life is so fulfilling and I have the freedom to do that.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. Absolutely love that. So I know we have like 10 minutes left, and then we're going to have to wrap up the show this evening. But how important is having an emergency fund?
I think emergency funds are absolutely essential. And I've seen it play out in my life because of the different car accidents and things like that I've had. I've seen it play out in my clients' lives. But a lot of people that come to me who've never had an emergency fund before, they don't realize how much stress is wrapped up in their ability to pay their bills. And you don't have any money to pay your bills, and your child comes home with a permission slip and it's like $50 I need for tomorrow's field trip. You don't have it, or if the check engine light on your car comes on, or if, your parent dies. Your parent dies and you don't have enough money to travel home for the funeral, and you can't afford to take a day off because then you're not going to get paid and you can barely make your rent. Like, these are the kinds of things that an emergency fund helps us for, and it provides what I call insulation from the elements of life. And so when we have an emergency fund, we're trying to get out of debt, we're trying to do something for our life, we're trying to make a change. And who always shows up when we trying to make a change?
Oh, Murphy.
Old Murphy, old man, old devil shows up and wants to wreak havoc. But the thing about him is he only wreaks havoc with people he can wreak havoc with. And when you have peace and you have that emergency fund and he sees that he can't sway you that much because you done took care of business, well, then he's going to go with somebody else and go mess with somebody else. And so I think I got that from Dave. I can't remember if it was from Dave or if it was from Dan Celia, but one of them calls a savings account Murphy repellent. It keeps them away. But it's so, and it's a shift in your mindset too, because when I didn't have an emergency fund, I didn't realize it, but I didn't value myself. Yeah. And when I started having an emergency fund, first thing that happened is everything started going wrong. So then I had to keep digging into my emergency fund, and then I was getting frustrated. Like, I save it up and then something happens. And finally somebody had to clue me in and was like, well, would you like something to happen and you don't have the money to cover it? And I was like, oh yeah, well, you know what? You got a point.
Exactly.
Right? And so the first thing that happens is things start happening. And then the next thing that happens is once things stop happening to you, people come with their hands out.
Yes.
And when you don't give to whatever it is they want, now, oh, you think you're somebody. Oh, you got to get off your high horse. Who do you think you are? You think you're better than us. No, I'm just trying to do something good for myself and my family. And you fast forward to 4 years ago, I had a really, really bad car accident, $40,000 in my normal savings account. And I needed that money to get through that time. Even with good insurance, my good insurance didn't cover all the neurology, all the TBI appointments, the supplements, the hyperbaric, the scans, all of that stuff. A lot of that stuff came out of pocket or significant cost. And so we need that savings account to help us weather the storms of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And folks, I want to say, because Jannine didn't say it, but an emergency is not Macy is having a sale.
Well,
and it's not Beyonce coming to town. Okay. That's not what emergency fund is for, right? Don't tell me, hey, it's an emergency. Beyonce is coming and she's only doing one show. So what? So I just had to say that. Sorry.
I love to shop. So, you know, when Macy's is having a sale, it's a real close borderline for me. But I'm gonna tell you something. Let me tell you something. I know we're kind of short on time. I know I got to go a little earlier than some of your guests, but one of the things that really comforts me is that when we make a commitment to living a lifestyle that will assure our financial future, doors begin to open up. Things begin to change for us. And what it takes is our commitment. And so you find that you have less emergencies after you get off of that initial hump. And you find that you have less of these amazing opportunities once in a lifetime. Sure, they come, but you have something in you that says, oh, I don't need that right now. Yes. I don't need that right now.
Yes. It goes back to what you said earlier, putting away things that are of lesser value to accept something that is of greater value. And let me tell you what, Jannine is an ordained minister. I'm an ordained minister. And let me tell you what, God says, when you do these things, and this is all about paying your tithe. And when you do these things, I will open you up. I have a window and pour you out blessings that you don't even realize how big they'll be. Right. So you have to be disciplined and you have to be consistent and you have to be willing to stick with it through the difficult times and you'll get over. So last question for you. If there was a book that was written about you, what would the name of that book be? And what would the summary in the back of the book say?
That's going to be a difficult one because everybody that wants to write something about me, they want to talk about the physics journey. And I'm like, I really don't want to keep rehashing that. That was the past. Right. And so that book is being written right now. But I think if there was to be a book written about me, I would like it to be titled something about living abundantly. And on the back of the book and in the summary, I think what I would love for them to capture is that you can live abundantly no matter how much you make, no matter how much you have. And that when you live abundantly and you live according to the principles of abundance, it's a very natural process for you to move forward from having little to having more. It's a natural God-given process, and anybody can build wealth.
Wow. I absolutely love that. And love you coming on the show today. But 2 minutes, I have to, every guest we do this is called Would You Rather? So I have to.
Oh, no.
Okay. So would you rather be best friends forever with your favorite celebrity or date your celebrity crush for only 2 years?
You know what? My husband laughs at me because he's such a movie buff. I don't even have a celebrity crush, so I would be BFFs with somebody that I'd have to research and figure out who it is. Yeah.
All right. Would you rather have free gas for 25 years or have your dream car?
Ooh. I'll go with the free gas. Quality gas, though, not cheap stuff that makes your car knock.
All right. Last one. Would you rather have $1 million in Amazon gift cards or have $100,000 in real money?
I think I would take the million in gift cards because I think I can spend that before they go out of business.
Well, that is awesome. Well, again, JJ, thank you very much for coming on the show. I totally enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. And to our audience, thank you guys for tuning in. And as I always say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.